So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 195 today of Level Up, 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A, where your questions really do drive the show. Today, we're encouraging everybody to do something for us and indeed something for yourselves. If you are watching on YouTube, then do please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. It's totally free, of course, and does help other people to find our content. A great option as well for yourself is to join our community and sign up for a personalized weekly update. Just follow the link on the screen. Ella today is leading over on the social chat, so do please let her know your name, of course, and the city from where you're joining. She's going to post some links in so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course for you to be able to add your own as well. If your question is selected, then your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get those questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Helping communicate expectations to staff, identifying preferred performance and behaviors that we wish to motivate and reward, boosting accountability to achieve results, and strengthening organizational learning are just some of the reasons why measurement in business is such an important enabler to both personal and organizational growth. But what do you measure and manage if you are to grow? We have a great panel today who are here to answer your questions. So let's jump in and meet them all. Malini Jayaganesh rejoins us. She is a highly experienced business relationship manager who specializes in nurturing high-performing teams. With a background also in business analysis, she's regularly invited to deliver presentations and keynotes at professional and academic forums, not just in Australia, but in the US and the UK and India as well. Welcome back, Malini. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick, and all my fellow panelists and our viewers. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because when I cook, I tend not to use measurements, but that's not how I would run my business.
Fantastic. But I think there as well, you may be able to kind of share that you're quite an experienced cook, and so therefore your ability to estimate becomes better over time and so on and so on. Okay, all right. I'm still very much at the micro measurement stage when it comes to cooking. Luca Gambetti joins. He's the founder, of course, of Equality Italia and an experienced coach and mentor. He builds deep relationships with his clients and teaches a wide range of leading practice across business relationship management and many other disciplines as well. Welcome back to Level Up, Luca. Great to see you.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, everyone, and my friend panelists. I am very, very happy to be here. It's not my usual team, but I would like really to share with you some ideas because I am a business owner, so I am very interested in measurements, and I would like to share with you what I learned.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Luca. Mart Rovers rejoins today. He's been on his travels in the last couple of weeks or so. Mart is, of course, the president over at INTERPROM, where he helps his clients build service management excellence beyond the boundaries of IT and across their organizations. He's a big fan as well of building sustainable relationships across his supply chain and his value chain. So welcome back to Level Up, Mart. Lovely to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Thank you, APMG, and appreciate the opportunity to be on this episode. Was quite excited to be invited to this one since measurements, it's near and dear. It's been almost something that has been following me throughout my career. Something that intrigued me as well was this quote from Mark Twain, that I thought could maybe get us going on this episode. He once said, most people use statistics the way a drunkard uses a lamppost, more for support than for illumination.
I love that. I love that. And what I'm trying to contextualize is Mark Twain and statistics. I'd never really put those two people in the same sentence previously. So thank you. That's a first, I think, for Level Up. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Robert Snyder joins. He is, of course, the founder and president at Innovation Elegance, where his career has spanned both technical project change and sales enablement roles, always looking to build positive outcomes. He inspires others with his quiet confidence and situational leadership. Welcome back to Level Up, Robert. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. It's a delight to be back with some familiar faces on the panel and new faces. I'm greetings from Chicago, and I love the topic of metrics because of the pragmatism that it can bring to teams and how we can stratify and distinguish pragmatism from what we're more passionate and emotional about. I'm going to make fun of myself, comparing myself to Malini, where she's winging it in the kitchen. And I will admit, with recipes, I'm incredibly literal. And let's see how that literalness manifests itself in my contributions today.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed. We might compare cooking techniques a little bit later. Who knows? We might have a show all about that. Falko Werner rejoins today. He's, of course, the co-founder of Vempio, where he's both an agile coach and an accomplished author in his own right. He helps organizations embed leading practice from DevOps to a whole range of different tools and techniques and methodologies and so on. Draws upon his deep experience, of course, and his coaching skills while he's doing that. Welcome back to Level Up, Falko. Brilliant to see you again.
Hey, nice to be here again. I'm happy to join another time and be in this group when fall and mushroom time starts. So there are lots of things that you can see in nature, and you can also be inspired by all those things changing around you, not only in nature, but also in business. And I think measurement metrics helps to get a grasp on some of those things that you want to change. And you can use it to motivate, you can use it to bring change into a room where it's usually blocked. So from that perspective, it's a helpful tool to do things with organizations.
Thank you so much, Falko. I love that thought, actually, about using the season of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. We're, heading through autumn or fall, depending on the way in which you describe it. And in the Southern Hemisphere, it's spring, heading in towards summer. So we have both hemispheres represented on the panel, lots of people from all over the world also joining in the social chat that we have running right now. So welcome, everybody. We'll come to you in a few moments. But completing our on-screen team today is Suchitra, who joins us. She is, of course, the APMG Operations Manager in India. Welcome back to Level Up, Suchitra. Great to see you.
Hi, Nick, and hello to our panelists and, of course, our viewers. Can't wait to start asking questions for today, and I hope you enjoy the show.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, panel. So let's do that if we can. I can see we've got lots of questions coming in already. So let's jump right in. Suchitra, if we can, we'll have our first question to the panel, please.
Sure. And we already have a live question from Milvio. How do you define the right things?
Malini, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Luca.
Milvio, thank you very much for such a beautiful question. It's, I think it's almost philosophical. But to me, in whatever context I'm operating in, the North Star in terms of what is right or wrong is purpose. So I would actually say, look to your organization's purpose, look to your organization's vision, and that should actually be the starting point for you to determine what you're going to measure.
Fantastic. I love that connection to purpose. We might come back to the word purpose a little bit more a wee bit later on. Thank you, Malini. Luca, your thoughts, then we'll go to Mart.
Yes, I agree. I agree with Malini, but I would like to add two other elements. One element is people. I mean, an organization must be beneficial for the human beings on the planet. And I will say also environment, or better, sustainability. I think that our organization must leave our environment as good as it is now, not worse than is it now. So purpose, sustainability, and people.
Thank you very much indeed. Sustainability and people, two very, very important considerations when we're thinking about, what is it that we need to define as the things that we want to manage and measure. Thank you very much indeed, Luca. Mart, your thoughts, then we'll go to Robert.
I totally agree with what was said already. Yogi Berra once said, along the same lines, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. And that's as in your first question, where do you want to go? What is it that you're aiming for? And initially, as an organization, you may be focusing on, hey, I need enough cash flow, I want decent margins, sales, it needs to be up there. But over time, you'll see this evolving into other metrics, like customer acquisition cost, or gross profit margins, or revenue growth, or customer retention ratios. So pick a few, right? Not all 15 that are out there, right? That's asking for the impossible. But measure what matters, especially depending on where you are in your journey.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. It's so important, isn't it, that a business is a business and it doesn't become a hobby. So if you ignore some of the basic things, then you can be very careful, because you can end up sort of working for others, but not necessarily actually making much headway and in a sustainable kind of way, so that you've got the money to be able to reinvest and grow your business. Very good. Thank you so much. Robert, final thoughts on this?
To piggyback on the comments about purpose and money, the word that comes to my mind is interface. So the interface of your company with the outside world. Of course, number one are your customers. What do you want to measure related to your customers and the offerings you provide them? I think of sellers. So the first interface within your company to the outside. And then finally, other market players, including your competition. What do you want to measure about them so that you are a fair but competitive and compelling player in the market? So I go back to the word interface to start identifying what is worth measuring.
Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Well, thank you, panel. Thank you, Milvio, for starting us off with such a fantastic question to get everybody going. Let's jump over to social then and kind of see what's happening over in the social chat. We've got lots of people online today. Welcome back, Idara, a regular viewer from Abuja in Nigeria. Great to have you online this morning. Thank you for joining. Looking forward to your contribution in the chat. Mohammed rejoins today. He is joining us again from Afghanistan, and it's lovely to have your country represented. So thank you very much indeed, Mohammed, for joining us on Level Up, our global community. Kathy Dykes joins, also from Chicago, up in the upper Midwest, I think it's fair to say, in the US. So thank you for joining today. And Divu joined us from South Africa as well. So brilliant. Thank you very much to have all of your contributions. Don't forget, if you put your question into the chat, we'll pick it up and bring it into the panel just as quickly as we can. On that note, Suchitra, let's move on and we'll take our next question, please.
So our next question is from George Jones. How important is reviewing customer satisfaction to grow my business?
Reviewing customer satisfaction. Should we keep focused on that? Is that something that's important to us? Luca, why don't you start us off and then we'll go to Falko.
The answer is obviously yes, it is fundamental, but I would like to do a small warning about that. customer satisfaction depends on how and when you measure it. Simple example, we are doing training courses, and there is a little trick. If you do a small joke, or you create a positive atmosphere, and then immediately after you ask for satisfaction, you will have higher results. So customer satisfaction can be easily modified, and it should be integrated with other kinds of measures. So fundamental, but beware.
Yeah, it's a very important concept, isn't it? Construct, rather, to think about how you're gathering in this information, and also what is it that you're doing with the analytics around that information as well. So thank you very much indeed, Luca. That's super helpful. Falko, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Mart.
Well, I think it's very important to be in contact with the customer, to understand, to learn, to see what the customer really wants to achieve and how to help the customer on the way to his or her goals. So from that perspective, customer engagement is important, regular contact to the customer, and if you are measuring customer satisfaction, you have some things to be aware. The one thing that Luca just said, how do you measure it? What is the setting? What do you really do with the measurements that you collect? I think it's more important to be in close contact and learn together. Co-creation could be a way to help. If you think about agile ways of working, there are places to include the customer inside the product development phase. You have more than just the customer satisfaction to run business well, but the customer is a very important piece of the puzzle to build a working organization, working business.
Absolutely. Quite often you see companies struggling because, they say, well, we're in a very competitive industry and, margins are very tight and so on. But I think if you're offering value to your customer, then, the customer will, respect that, and they will pay you the rate that is appropriate for the value that they're deriving. So I think that's a great idea, to keep that customer within the Agile product development cycle and really keep close to them. Thank you, Falko. Mart, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Malini.
So I agree with everything that's been said. Customer satisfaction, yes. It would make you think, indeed, like you said, Nick, that's value, the value perception and so on. I would like actually to go a step further and challenge maybe not so much the customer satisfaction, but go for customer experience and measure impact. A very good example that was shared at a conference I just came from was, you just booked a hotel, and this is one of those 5-star high-end hotels, and you're expecting great value. But what was more impressive for the guest when entering the hotel was that the person greeting knew you by name and greeted you with your, as in, that was impact, as in that was more than expected. I mean, the value was expected, but the impact was what made a bigger impression. So yeah, definitely measure that, the impact, and yes, value, and obviously, but maybe a little bit provocative here, but go for customer experience and impact.
It's interesting, isn't it, how these things are starting to develop for, for those people who have had, the opportunity to travel. You get a sense of what that service is in different countries, the different cultures of different countries and so on. And it leaves a lasting impression on us, I think, because it is different, and that impact that you speak about is very important. Thank you so much indeed, Mart. Appreciate it. Malini, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Robert.
George, I think it's absolutely critical to measure customer satisfaction, but I agree with my fellow panelists that you have to, go about this or put a bit of thought into this. So I've seen some organizations use or sort of aggregate customer satisfaction, and then overall they say, oh, our customers are very satisfied. But then if you actually plot the customer satisfaction metrics across all the touch points that customers have throughout their experience with your organization, you'll actually find that there are some areas or some touch points that actually are doing quite poorly. So you need to actually make sure that whichever way you're going about measuring customer satisfaction actually gives you rich insights into what is actually working well, what is not working well, because ultimately the objective of these measures is to inform our actions, right? So unless you have that understanding, you won't know what you're going to do with the metrics that you actually get. And one tool that I can recommend you have a look at, and you can look this up on Google, is the Lego experience wheel. And so it's a great visual tool that you can use to plot customers' experience and their satisfaction throughout their engagement with you.
And that's a great one, Malini. We'll have a little look for that link for some folks so that they can find the Lego experience wheel. Thank you very much indeed. It sounds really fascinating. I'm not aware of that one, so that'll be a learning point for me as well. I appreciate that. Thank you. Robert, final thoughts on this one?
I certainly agree. Customer feedback is absolutely vital. The plus one on that is that I worry that many companies lack a robust, humble, vulnerable feedback loop to incorporate the changes that they see fit, which often originate from customer ideas. So I worry that companies might be cheap or defensive, scared, not brave. And I would encourage all businesses to be vulnerable. This is the opportunity. This is the place for vulnerability and humility, and absolutely close the feedback loop when you receive feedback from customers.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's a really vulnerable moment when you invite, feedback from the customers that you're serving. And to take that on board and to bring that to the heart of your organization and, importantly, decide to do something about it is critical, I think, for future success. So thank you very much indeed, panel. And George, thank you for a fabulous question to really get us going. We went from measuring the financials in the first question through to really thinking about that customer satisfaction, that customer experience, as Mart was saying. So brilliant question to extend the discussion, if you like. Suchitra, let's move on. If we can, we'll take our next question to the panel.
We have a live question from one of our regular panelists, Adrian Pine. Measurement means data. Is AI the answer or a huge risk?
Well, it's an interesting question, Adrian. And I'm sure that we're all dabbling a little bit in artificial intelligence at the moment, just to find out where the edges are and become more familiar ourselves. Luca, what are your thoughts about AI? Does it provide answers or does it raise the risk?
Well, it depends. I read recently a paper from 1975. I think the author was Miller. I will provide this later. That said, in a world with an information overload, every agent should be an information condenser. So, coming to AI, if AI is able to spot patterns that I am not able to spot, yes, AI has a huge potential. If not, AI is not helping me. But this is true for everything. Every agent, every person in an organization should be an information condenser.
An information condenser, what a great phrase, to consider for each of us. Thank you very much indeed. Robert, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Falko.
I'm going to answer this question specifically for how I've used ChatGPT over the past year. And I am underwhelmed by that tool's value add for metrics because it stands to dilute my customer intimacy, dilute my focus, and what makes my company and my relationships with my customers unique. It risks diluting it with publicly available information from X number of months ago. And so specifically for ChatGPT, I don't consider it a risk other than just diluting focus for what's unique to me and my business.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I think sometimes as well, we've become reasonably aware that not everything on the internet is to be trusted. And in the early days of the large language models, including ChatGPT, I think people were taking the answers it was providing as with a little bit too much trust attached to them. So it's good to have some skepticism, and it's good to have some real life experience of trying to use those and sort of think, is this really adding that much value, to me and my organization or not? Thank you. Falko, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go on to Mart.
Yeah, I'm coaching and training in the area of DevOps, and there you have a saying that's coming up once in a while: measure everything you can. And there are organizations that are measuring gigabytes of data per day. And if you have such amounts of data about customer interactions on, I don't know, whatever platform, website, calls, and so on, then it's hard to have as many people reading and going through all those collected information. And there, AI is helpful to condense, as Luca said, condense data to important ideas, concepts, and build actions on top of that to better engage, to find the bottleneck in a process, in a customer experience flow. And there, I see it's very important. If you just say a general large language model like ChatGPT or other providers, that's probably not the place where AI is most helpful. But if you even look into all those huge amounts of data that some organizations are gathering, there is no other way than to help learning with automatic tools.
Yeah, I really do agree with that, particularly when you're dealing with data of different types. So, for instance, I remember retailers using security camera footage of how people moved around their grocery stores in order to be able to place items collectively together. The impact, the visual impact of having cards that emerge from the sides of the high shelving on either side of you as you walk down a supermarket aisle make a difference to human behavior. That sort of video data is very difficult to analyze without these sorts of machine learning tools and artificial intelligence algorithms that look at dwell time and whereabouts are people physically located in the store and so on and so on, to help you refine that merchandising. I think is the name that retailers give to the product placement on the shelving. So thank you, Falko. Absolutely right. Depending on your industry, you may find it being very helpful to you. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Malini.
Just quickly, indeed, it can be enormously helpful. Working your way through enormous amount of data. But if you're not an experienced in that particular field, in other words, if you're a novice, it's risky, to draw your conclusions based on what you're reading, since all these tools are only as smart, quote, quote, as you feed them. So if the data is wrong, then the outcome is wrong. So, for example, factually wrong information is now published through these AI-generated pages I can point them out, for example, on LinkedIn. Google now allows you to say, hey, I don't want my website or these web pages to be included in these AI searches. In other words, you may not have the complete picture. So be very, very cautious. In other words, know what you're reading and what you're looking at, because if you don't, you may end up drawing the wrong conclusions.
Thank you very much indeed, Mart. So important, isn't it, to get guidance over what do the numbers really mean, and to work with colleagues who have that expertise, really, to be able to help you. Thank you. Malini, your thoughts on this?
Adrian, I think AI, could be immensely helpful, but I think the risk, apart from the ones that everyone has outlined already, is if AI is seen as the only way of getting data, right? And I think there are, particularly when I think of measures such as customer satisfaction, there are certain there are measures that we could use that are actually not quantitative. And I just wonder how these will actually be interpreted by AI. I think there's always room for human interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely is. Thank you very much indeed, Malini. Now, I think one of the things where perhaps machine learning can help us all is in thinking about the absence of data rather than the presence of it. Human beings are quite good at being able to spot the presence of things and patterns, but to Luca's earlier point, the absence of information actually can be pretty tricky to be able to spot as a human. And some machine learning can help you identify gaps, in the patterns of behavior that you're looking for, or indeed, in the absence of data at the edges of your business that may then bring new opportunities to you. Okay. Over on social, we've got some new folks who are joining. Bina joins us from West Yorkshire here in the UK. Welcome, Bina. Looking forward to your contribution in the chat today. And also we have Boleslaw joining as well, although I'm guessing whereabouts you may be in the world. We'll wait and see. And Harry joins us from Melbourne in Australia. So a neighbour to Malini, perhaps. Who knows? Anyway, from the same city, welcome to the panel. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, evening time from Melbourne in Australia. Brilliant to have you online today. Let's move on to Suchitra and take our next question to the panel, please.
Our next question is also from another panelist, Marion Bell. In your opinion, what are the 3 most important measures to get right to ensure the success and profitability of a business?
3 most important measures. If you had to pick 3, Robert, start us off, please. What are your 3 most important measures to get right?
Of course, I'm going to start with the customer. So metric number 1 would be the quantity and the selection of the customer experiences that I offer. Number 2 would be the delivery channels, offline, online, asynchronous, synchronous. I believe that a company's delivery channels can be critical to long-term success. And then adjacencies, the partners that you have, your suppliers, your distributors, your competitors. In a word, I'll call it autonomy for the boundaries of your company. Those would be my 3 nominations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Robert. It's got my brain thinking. Malini, your thoughts, then we'll go to Luca.
Marion, your question actually reminds me of something that we cover, in our business relationship management courses. We refer to the triple bottom line, right? People, planet, and purpose. So I think measures that relate to these 3 aspects, of an organization, I think are really, really important. And of course, you could unpack, for example, purpose could be inclusive of profit, right? So think about how you can, delve into each one. People could cover your customer, your suppliers, your employees, all of those as well. So it's actually quite a loaded question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, thank you, Malini. I love that. People, planet, and purpose. It's easier to remember than the balanced scorecard ever was. Everybody struggles, I think, with the balanced scorecard concept. But people, planet, and purpose seems to be something which is much easier to bring to mind. Thank you so much. Luca, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Mart.
Yes, actually, we have three measures. We have three indicators. One that we call the impact, that is a function of how many people trained and with what degree of success and satisfaction. So we build a single indicator coming from all three. So first of all, impact, that is a measure of purpose. Then we have cash flow. It's not profit, it's cash flow, because you can run out of cash and your company will crash in this case. And then we have another indicator that is built upon growth and profitability together. So these are what I choose for my company.
And cash flow, it's been said many, many times, but it absolutely is the lifeblood of commercial organizations. You need the money coming in order to be able to service a growing business. You can have a fantastic business proposition. You can grow very aggressively, but in growing aggressively, actually, you can just run out of money very, very quickly. But you're still on paper, you're profitable, but you don't have the cash to be able to fund the growth. So really good advice. Thank you, Luca. Mart, what are your coaching points on the three most important measures?
The entry-level metrics are indeed cash flow, margins, and sales, which translates hopefully in net profit. But more advanced, I'm thinking of customer retention, so repeat customers, and then think of employee well-being, and like Malini was talking about, satisfying purpose or achieving a mission vision if you don't have a purpose defined for your organization.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, panel. Some excellent thoughts there. And Marion, I hope that we've given you some food for thought. Marion, I know you're a very accomplished businesswoman as well, and you run your own organization. So thank you for putting in a question to the panel and us all learning from each other. So we appreciate that. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
We have a question from Falko. Do importance and relevance of metrics change over time? If so, how?
Well, it's a really good question, Falko. We really appreciate you kind of putting it in to the panel. If I may, I'm going to come to you last a little bit. I'm going to start us off on this one. Do the importance and the relevance of them change over time? I think some do, actually, yes, depending on the phase that you're in as an organization, the service maturity that you're delivering, and the market that you're trying to enter, grow, or sustain over time. Each product tends to have a bit of a life cycle to it, and each market that you're addressing, you will sometimes be a disruptor in that market. Sometimes you might even grow to become, if you like, the top of the food chain in that market and dominate a market space for a little while, in which case you might be wanting to look at slightly different metrics and the relevance of them, or the weighting that you might apply. Let's hear from some of the others. Robert, what are your thoughts on this? Do these things change over time, or they are always static?
The first thing that comes to mind is this stoplight report, red, yellow, green. When I am measuring something and managing it back to a green rating, once I succeed, I'm probably going to shift my emphasis to go proactively manage something that is in a troubled place. I'm going to rate it something that I rate red. So I believe the red, amber, green approach to metrics can be very helpful to, over time, make sure we're chasing the right needle to move. The second thing that comes to mind is perfectionism. on the path toward perfectionism, at some point, your time, your incremental hour is better spent elsewhere. So when companies pursue one metric obsessively, there is a point of diminishing returns. And so I think it's valuable to remember that sometimes obsession with one metric can be at the expense of other absolutely vital metrics.
Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Luca, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Malini.
Yes, I would add this perspective. We are measuring essentially for reducing risk, for learning and reducing risk. So once reduced the risk, once learned about the environment, we could stop measuring something and moving to something else. So it all depends on what we know about the environment and what we don't know.
Okay, thank you. Good point around that management mitigation of risk. Malini?
Something that we haven't actually touched on so far in this conversation is about different types of metrics, right? Not all metrics are the same. And some metrics are leading indicators, right? And some are lagging. So you might, depending on where you are, in your business growth cycle, I suppose, some things which you would have considered as being your core metrics might actually over time just become, leading metrics because you've moved on to other things. So I think, Falko, that things do change over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And in order to be able to respond to, market situation and maintain that profitability, I always remember the story of the producer of matches who listened eventually to an employee who suggested only putting the striking paper on one side of the box instead of two. This saved them a huge amount of money, and it actually didn't affect the customer experience at all. So these sorts of things definitely do change. Falko, what are your reflections on the thoughts of the panel? You asked the question, you put the question to the panel. What are your thoughts? Do they remain static, or is it a good idea to constantly evolve and refresh them and think about things in different ways?
Yeah, a little bit. The question itself was leading into they change, and I agree to what you say. There are different types of metrics. I always think about leading and lagging indicators. If you want to change something at the output, it's always good to have kind of system thinking approach. What are the inputs of the process? What are the outputs of the process? And how can I change? So do we have bottlenecks to focus on? And then we measure there in a little bit more detail and start to derive actions on improving on the bottleneck. And that's how leading and lagging indicators are connected. And also, if you think about goal hierarchies or pyramids in organizations, you have a very high level of goal from management usually that you want to achieve, and then you have to think about breaking it down and measuring it, maybe even iteratively, with processes and tools like objectives and key results, and go through that and change those targets over time, then that's usually a helpful thing to do. So from that perspective, thanks for the input from the other panelists to the questions, and maybe a few ideas from me as well to the other panelists and the audience.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Well, Suchitra, time is running against us, so we better pick up the pace a little. Let's go to our next question, please.
Another question again from Marion. I'm managing a training and consulting business. What would be the most important measures to ensure success of the accredited training organization?
Okay, Marion. So the most important measures to ensure success. Well, I'm going to start you off with thinking about something that Mart mentioned right at the top of the show, which is about that customer experience. How do people feel when they're learning things? When we're delivering a services business, coaching, mentoring, education, training, how people feel during that learning experience is very, very important to the outcome, and also how they perceive your service delivery over time. So I would pay careful attention to things like learning styles, how different people prefer to learn, and really work with them to try and differentiate that learning experience in each of the classes that is delivered, so that each person gets the maximum benefit out of attending the courses that you are responsible for. So there's one thought to get you going. Falko, what are your thoughts on this? It's a service business. It's in the training space. What would you advise, Marion?
Yeah, I would say I agree. It's important to bring value to the learners, but also to keep in mind that usually it's not the learner who's the customer of the training organization, but the employer of the learner for most of the cases. So also keep in mind, from the customer perspective, there are sales processes, there are other things to improve, to have a good customer experience on all levels, not only focusing on the learner, but also having the organization in mind. So bringing value to the learner to change the organization into a good place, and also have the sales processes in place, help the people who choose or suggest trainings to possible learners in the organizations, is important to me. And the next thing, I'm reading training and consulting business. So you have two types of products from reading this. Maybe it's an idea to combine those. From my perspective, it's quite hard if a person who's in the box of a trainer to be seen by learners or by the organizations also as a good consultant. So it's a hard thing to do, but valuable as well, to show that you have the theoretical knowledge to train, to bring value to the learners, but also to follow up on this learning process and bringing value into the real life of the learners in the organization could be a very important thing to keep in mind.
Thank you so much. Luca, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Robert.
Yes, I would like to be a little bit provocative with my answer. No measure will never ensure success of any organization. So, well, your organization, my organization, is an experiment. We have to prove the value of the experiment in the real world. So metrics will prove or disprove if the experiment is good. So I have already answered what are the metrics I use for my experiment.
I think that's a lovely way to think about it, Luca, because, experiments suggest scientific method, and in scientific method, you're adjusting variables over time to perfect or refine or improve, the outcome that you are looking for. So thank you so much indeed. Robert, your thoughts, please, and then Mart.
I'll piggyback on that word experiment. So thank you for that, Luca. What I'm going to measure, I guess, then is student engagement. It's customer feedback response rate. Because if that is low, that's a sure sign of disengagement, and that can't be good. So, of course, the substance and the qualitative content that you get in surveys is critical. But I love that the humility of the word experiment. Other than that, I think of price point for training and consulting. You have to be at the right price point, and you have to be at the right cost point. Trainers can be expensive. And so for you to be a viable, sustainable business, price points and cost points, I think, are also critical.
Thank you very much indeed. Mart, final thoughts?
Yeah, just keep it simple. I'd say, do they come back for more? That's a good indicator.
Certainly is, isn't it? It certainly is. It's expensive to win that customer in the first place, and it's proven that it's less expensive if you can get them to come back again and again. So thank you, Mart. Suchitra, I think we've got time, if we're super quick, to fit in one last question to the panel. So let's take that, please.
Yes, of course. So the last question is from Jessica in London. In what ways could I ensure that I'm staying current in the market?
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Jessica. Staying current in the market around, measurement and thinking about, how we go about doing this. Are there some current trends that we should really consider, panel, in order to, remain on top of this? Robert?
I believe junior salespeople are a hidden gold mine in most companies. I believe sales leaders get a lot of attention. But the junior salespeople, they might be trendy, they might be fearless, and I think that many companies are sitting on a gold mine of potential for ways to stay current and avoid being seen as dinosaurs or something like that.
Thank you very much indeed. Falko, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, building up on that, junior salespeople are people who are very close to customers. So being in touch with the customers, where I would emphasize on, not only trying to understand what the customer wants, but going a level deeper and seeing what the customer needs. And therefore, you have to really know the customer, and not only what Ford said. My customers, when I asked them, they would have wanted to have faster horses to draw the carriages, and not provide motor-driven vehicles. So from that perspective, really look into the customer needs, and there you have a very good basis to build and stay current.
It's very true, isn't it? It was a fantastic quote, actually. If I'd gone and asked the customers, they would have said that they just wanted a faster horse, when he was talking about introducing his manufacturing techniques, of course, which lowered the price point considerably and improved accessibility to cars and small commercial transport and so on. Thank you very much indeed to our producers online. So fantastic questions from you all today from around the world. It's been absolutely amazing. Let's hear our closing remarks from the panel. Robert, we'll come to you first, and then we'll go to Mart.
Thank you, Nick. Two thoughts in closing. Number one, customer obsession. For as important as cash flow and the finances are, I still maintain that upstream from the finances is customer obsession, and specifically for nimbleness, for metrics, attentiveness. And if you're not absolutely sure that you're measuring the right things, then you're probably not. And keep asking. And if you're hyper attentive to what you're measuring, and humble enough to pivot and change those measurements, I think it's a good humble approach.
Thank you very much indeed, Mart, and then Luca.
If there's one thing that should be a takeaway from this episode, is that measuring and measuring metrics matter. So make sure you do. Also in line with the quote from Grace Murray Hopper, who once said, "One accurate measurement is worth 1,000 expert opinions."
Thank you very much indeed. It's a good point, isn't it? Thank you. Luca, your final thoughts on today, your reflections on today, and then we'll go to Malini.
It was an unbelievably interesting episode from my point of view, and I really think that we could have another edition of this, because there are so many things to reflect on. This is fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate your contribution as ever today. Malini, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Falko.
Thank you, Nick and APMG, for having me on this panel. Great conversation, wonderful questions. One thing that we didn't get to today, which I was hoping to, was about metrics relating to employee satisfaction. While customer satisfaction is really critical, I think employee satisfaction is equally critical, because when we take care of our employees, they're more likely to take care of our customers. So that's something I think we should keep on top of as well.
Okay, thank you. We're going to see if we can ask our audience what their thoughts are about our next panel session around employee satisfaction, some of those more, intangible or tangible things that we need to think about inside our own organization. So we'll put that question out to our group of producers who are online today, see what their reflections are. Falko, your reflections on today.
Well, if we talk about measurements and metrics, I would say you should take time to review your metrics on a regular basis and decide which is the most important. And one thing that could help you is, did you derive an action based on your metrics that you really evaluate? If you don't, then it's time to switch and to focus on to something different. And that's the most important things. If you don't use your metrics, then they are obsolete.
It's a really good point, isn't it? You really do need to act on the information that you're discovering. Thank you, Falko. Thank you, panel. Suchitra, reflections on today?
It's been a great show, Nick, and thank you so much to our panelists for your amazing answers, and of course our producers for your questions. We did have a few live questions that come in towards the end, so we will pick that up in the next show. So thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you for doing such a great job of navigating our way through all of those live questions. And we've definitely got some to carry over into a future episode. I'd like to thank our panel on behalf of our producers online. We've got a very active group online today, setting the questions and talking to each other about, their thoughts and ideas throughout. So thank you on their behalf, and thank you to our producers as well, because without you, then there's no show, as it's 60 minutes of all questions and answers driven by you. Now, over on our website, of course, you may search for the answers to previously asked questions. There's more than 2,000 of them. It's a free resource connecting you with experts from all over the world. And don't forget that you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for APMG International, level up your career, and you will find us pretty easily. Coming up later on today, APMG is hosting a digital trust practice webinar in conjunction with ISARCA. It's a registered event, so do use the QR code below to sign up for that. This Friday, the 20th at 2 p.m. UK time, we're going to be discussing building your project management career here on Level Up. And on Monday, the 23rd at 8 in the morning, again UK time, we'll be exploring why writing a great business case is an absolutely key skill to have. Sign up and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.